I never thought that coming home from the hospital would end with me being left on the curb like a stranger. The taxi hadn't even rolled to a full stop before I saw them. 2 suitcases, one dented, one missing a wheel, stacked neatly by the mailbox. On top of them, like a cherry on top of a nightmare, sat a pink envelope. Bubble letters. A little heart over the I. It read, "If you want to stay here, we have the garage smiley face. Your loving daughter-in-law." I sat frozen in the back seat, fingers tightening around the door handle. The driver shifted in his seat, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Ma'am?" he asked gently. "This the right place?" I couldn't answer. My mouth opened, but the words didn't come. The house stood still in the heat of late afternoon, sunlight glinting off the freshly cleaned windows. My house. The house I helped buy. The house I thought I'd be welcome in after surgery. The driver stepped out first, lifting the suitcases with a grunt. He set them carefully beside the envelope, like I was checking into a hotel. I stepped out last, slow, the stitches in my hip tugging. I hadn't even gotten the receipt before I was already reaching for my phone. Dialing the bank, heart hammering. Not because I needed money, because I needed answers. They didn't come out to greet me. Not my son, not her, not even the dog, who used to wait by the front door, tail thumping against the wall like clockwork. Instead, I got a text. "Let's talk tomorrow. Get some rest." From my son, my only child. My lungs seized up like I was underwater. I walked slowly up the driveway, dragging the suitcases like dead limbs. I expected the door to be unlocked. It wasn't. I knocked once. No answer. Then again harder. I saw movement in the window upstairs. Just a flicker. A figure ducking behind the curtain. I pressed the doorbell, heard it echo inside the foyer I helped remodel. Nothing. Finally, I walked around the side of the house. The side gate was unlatched. I slipped through it like a trespasser, heart thudding in my ears. The garage door was already open. Inside was chaos, paint cans stacked high. A lawnmower, half a Christmas tree. The air smelled like turpentine and mold. And in the middle of it all, a half-deflated air mattress with a stained pillow on top. That was my welcome home. No blanket, no light switch I could find, a folding table with a single water bottle and a roll of toilet paper on it. Like I was camping, like I was someone else's problem now. I stood there, unable to move. The ache in my hip flared again, sharp and urgent. I leaned against the wall, breathing through my teeth. I was trying not to cry, not from pain, but from the taste of betrayal in the back of my throat. I thought I was still part of this family. I paid this month's mortgage. I sent her that last Venmo transfer before the surgery. "Just to help out while I'm recovering," I'd written. "Thanks for everything." I never thought she'd use that money to evict me. I sat on the edge of the mattress, knees trembling, and reread the text. "Let's talk tomorrow." No, not tomorrow. Tonight. I opened my banking app, scrolled through the last 6 months. Every payment was there. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, all from my account. But then I checked the deed. I wasn't listed. Not once, not even as a co-owner. That's when the shaking started. Not from my hip, not from fear, from rage. I stared at that bubble-lettered envelope lying in the dust by the side of the garage door and felt something inside me snap. They wanted me out of the way. And they thought I'd stay quiet. Tomorrow, they'd find out who I really was. That night, I laid on the air mattress between a lawnmower and a plastic tub labeled X-Mass Throw Away. It hissed every time I moved. The mattress, not even fully inflated. One sad pillow, stuffed with what felt like old socks, offered no comfort. I stared at the exposed beams above me, counting them like they could answer something. How did I get here? The garage smelled like someone had mixed gasoline with regret. My good knee ached, but the other, my surgery hip, screamed every time I shifted. Somewhere behind me, a spider crawled under the wheel of a tricycle. I didn't move. I'd already moved enough for one lifetime. I tried not to cry. I failed. The tears came slow. Not dramatic, just one at a time. A quiet rebellion. It wasn't just the mattress. It was the silence. the absence of care. The way my son hadn't even come to the door. How she, the woman I once called like a daughter, had left that damn envelope on my suitcase like a joke. I kept replaying the past 6 months, the groceries I picked up, the school pickups I covered when they were too swamped. The time I stayed up all night with their baby when the sitter canceled, and she said, "You're a lifesaver." That's what I was to them, a lifesaver, until I wasn't. I pulled my cardigan tighter. The cold in that garage wasn't just physical, it was the kind that seeps into the soul, the kind that makes you question your place in your own bloodline. I tried calling my son once more, straight to voicemail. My phone buzzed a minute later. A text, "Mom, we'll talk in the morning. Please, just rest. It's temporary." Temporary? Like the money I temporarily covered for them for 9 months straight? Like the child care that was supposed to be just until daycare opens up? Like the surgery recovery that turned into a silent eviction? I gritted my teeth and stared at the ceiling. They were sleeping upstairs under a roof I'd helped pay for. I could almost hear their laughter through the walls. Or maybe it was my imagination, cruel and sharp. I tried to sleep. I curled on my side and ignored the crinkle of a broken candy cane wrapper under the mattress. But all I could think about was how none of this made sense. Not unless it was planned. That text from her last week. Just checking, "Did you send the transfer for this month?" I had. Of course I had. Now I wondered if it was the final piece of whatever puzzle she was putting together. She used to be sweet. Said she loved having me there. That I was a blessing. And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. Even when the gratitude faded. Even when her tone sharpened. Even when the shared meals turned into, "Could you just eat later? The kids are cranky." Somewhere in the dark, the garage door creaked. Probably the wind. Probably nothing. Still, I held my phone tighter. I thought about calling Maggie. I almost did. But pride stopped me. That awful, exhausted pride. Instead, I opened the Notes app and typed one sentence. I paid the mortgage. She put me in the garage. Then I wrote the date. Saved it. I didn't know why. Not yet. But something in me whispered, "Keep everything. Document it all." Because this wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. And if they thought I'd sleep through it, like a doormat on morphine, they'd forgotten who raised that boy upstairs. They'd forgotten who kept this family standing when it almost crumbled more than once. They thought I'd roll over. But I didn't roll. I watched. And in the morning I would remember, 2 years ago, when I moved in after surgery, they said I was family, said you'll always have a place here. And for a while, it felt true. She used to bring me tea in the evenings. My son would text me from work. "Thanks for watching the kids, Mom. We couldn't do this without you." I painted the guest room a soft yellow, added curtains, called it my little corner. We laughed in that kitchen, ate pancakes at midnight. She'd say, "I don't know how people do it without help," and squeeze my hand like she meant it. So when the bills piled up, I helped. Quietly. Grocery runs, utility gaps. Even the mortgage. Once, then twice, then every month. No one asked. I just did it. That's what mothers do, right? Step in where it counts, and they thanked me. Until they didn't. It shifted so slowly, I didn't notice. My name stopped coming up in plans. The guest room became the office. Dinners got quieter. I started finding my laundry in the garage. She still smiled, but only when I pulled out my wallet. One night, I was feeding the baby when she looked over and said, "We're lucky we have the space for this situation." She meant me. That's when it started to click. This wasn't home anymore. I wasn't included. I was accommodated. Barely. But I still told myself it was just stress. That things would shift back. That once the baby was older, once things got easier, we'd sit at the table again like we used to. Now I know better. That night on the air mattress, I kept thinking about that yellow room upstairs. My room. The one I paid for. The one I got pushed out of without a word. She called it the garage like it was a compromise, like I should be grateful not to be on the street. And I guess in her mind I should. But I remember the receipts. The transfers. The way she called me a blessing when I paid her mortgage. She didn't see a mother-in-law, she saw a lifeline. And once they thought I wasn't needed, they cut me loose. Still, there's one thing they forgot. My name isn't on the deed, but the bank statements tell another story. And I've kept every single one. By morning, the garage felt colder than before. Maybe because now I knew what I was in. Not a guest stay, not a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, calculated. So I started digging. I sat at the dusty fold-out table with my purse dumped open, fingers sifting through receipts like bones. Grocery stores, pharmacy runs, Venmo transfers labeled mortgage, school fees, just for now, month after month. I wasn't on the deed. I'd confirmed that last night. But the money, that was all mine. I pulled out a crumpled folder I kept for important things. Half-forgotten bank statements, screenshots of texts, a printed email where she'd written, "Thank you for covering the mortgage again. Truly don't know what we'd do without you." I'd been saving them without meaning to. Some part of me knew. And now, in the quiet of the garage, with cobwebs brushing my arm and the faint smell of gasoline in the air, I realized something. This wasn't just hurt feelings. This was leverage. They wanted me out quietly, wanted to move on, sell the house, maybe, without the mess of a confrontation. But they forgot what I gave. They forgot who built the ground they're standing on. I scrolled through my banking app again, carefully this time. I matched payments with dates. I cross-checked it all against the mortgage company. Sure enough, my payments were hitting their loan. And the biggest thing, they never used their own accounts. It was always me, month after month, the entire past year. I laughed once, just a breath, not from amusement, from clarity. I hadn't been helping. I'd been investing. They just didn't tell me that's what it was. I left the garage door cracked and slipped into the kitchen while the house was quiet. She was still upstairs, probably scrolling Instagram, sipping a smoothie, thinking she'd gotten away with it. I laid out the documents on the counter, not to confront, not yet, just to see it all together. Mortgage statements, transfer records, screenshots of every thank you. It looked like a puzzle finally snapped into place. And in that silence, I had a moment of doubt. Would my son really stand behind this? Would he let this happen? He used to come to me with scraped knees, sit on the counter while I made dinner, say, "You're the strongest person I know, Mom." But now, he wasn't even texting back. I packed the papers back up. Every line item, every date, every shred of proof. Not out of spite, out of survival. Because love can be blinding, but bank records don't lie. As I turned back toward the garage, I saw the pink envelope still sitting on top of my suitcase. "If you want to stay here, we have the garage smiley face." I picked it up, folded it neatly, slipped it into the folder with the rest. Let them think I was just lying low. Let them think I'd quietly disappear. Because while they were planning how to push me out, I was building my case. And I had a feeling, soon enough, they'd wish I'd stayed in that garage. 3 days later, I heard her on the phone. She thought I was still in the garage, still tucked between paint cans and shame, but I'd come inside for water. Quietly. I moved slow now, not from pain, but from strategy. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. But the door to her office was cracked, and her voice carried. "It's better this way," she was saying, sharp but low. "She's just in the way when buyers tour the place. No, she doesn't know. She thinks it's still her home. God, she's so clueless." I stopped mid-step. I felt the glass in my hand tilt, the water threatening to spill. Buyers? She was selling, without a word, without a conversation, just decided to erase me like chalk off a sidewalk. She laughed, high and fake. "Once it's done, we'll have room to breathe again. No more guilt, no more tiptoeing. It's just business. We need the equity." A pause. "Her money? Are you kidding? She's not even on the deed." That was when my fingers curled tight around the glass. She was right about one thing. I wasn't on the deed, but she was wrong about the rest. I stepped back quietly, didn't let the floorboards creak. I moved through that hallway like a ghost, because I knew something now. She was getting ready to cash out, and I was just a smudge on the window, something to scrub away before the open house. But what she didn't know, what they didn't know, was that I'd been listening and that I had started writing everything down. That night, I opened my notes app and created a new document. For the lawyer. Mortgage payments, May through February. Paid from my pension account. Text from her. Thanks for covering again. You're seriously saving us. Joint groceries, school fees, unpaid promises. Now. Phone call. She's selling the house I was never consulted. She said, she's in the way. Her money? She's not even on the deed. I didn't need drama. I needed evidence. And I was building it. They thought I was too old, too tired, too weak to fight back. But I've been through worse than this. Divorce, grief, hip surgery that left me unable to walk for weeks. I survived all that. I'd survived this too. I added one last note. Don't confront. Not yet. Let them keep talking. Because if she was this careless already, I knew there was more to come. And when I had it all, every whisper, every transaction, every smug comment, they wouldn't be able to sell a single thing without answering to me. That pink envelope said, "We have the garage smiley face." But now I had something better. Leverage. I didn't go back to the garage that night. I sat on the edge of the guest bathroom tub, door locked, folder in my lap, and tried to breathe. There was only one person I trusted with what I'd found. Maggie. She used to work real estate law before retirement. Smart as a whip. Heart like a bulldog. The kind of woman who brings lemon bars to funerals and asks if the will was fair. So the next day, I called her. "You home?" I asked, voice small. "Always," she said. "Come early. I'll make coffee." By the time I got to her kitchen, I was shaking. The kind that starts in your fingers but somehow gets into your teeth. Maggie poured me a mug and didn't say a word until I took the first sip. Then she folded her arms across that gingham apron and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. The garage, the pink envelope, the mortgage payments, the overheard phone call about buyers. Her expression didn't move the whole time, except her eyes. Those got sharper by the second. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said just one word, leverage. "You may not be on the deed," she said, "but you've been paying that mortgage. That matters. Especially if it's consistent. If you've got documentation, you may have a claim, equitable interest. They can't just toss you aside and walk off with the equity you built. Equitable interest. The words tasted like heat in my chest. A little power, a little oxygen. I opened the folder and slid it toward her. Every screenshot, every receipt, every line of proof. She flipped through them with practiced hands, nodding. "This is good, real good. But you'll need more. Texts, emails, anything that shows they acknowledge the money came from you." I swallowed. "You think I have a case?" Maggie looked up. "I think you've got more than that. I think you've got a shot to stop them before they sell that house out from under you." For a second, I felt 10 years younger, then 10 years angrier. Because they didn't just forget me, they tried to erase me. She gave me a name, a lawyer she trusted. "Start quiet," she said. "No fights. No warnings. Just get your ducks lined up." I nodded, folding the papers back into the folder with shaking hands. Maggie reached across the table and squeezed mine. They picked the wrong woman to shove in a garage. The clock on her oven ticked softly. Outside, birds picked at crumbs on her porch railing. Everything felt so normal, so calm. And yet, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just a mother-in-law anymore. I wasn't their emergency fund. I wasn't a guest. I was a woman who'd paid for a roof and been tossed under it. And now I was a woman with a lawyer. I turned the garage into an office. Not out of pride, out of necessity. An old shipping box became my desk. A crate of broken ornaments held my folder upright. I borrowed a lamp from the basement and plugged it in with a cord that sparked if I breathed too hard. This was where they put me, so this was where I'd fight from. I scheduled the consultation, quietly. The lawyer Maggie recommended, Mr. Chen, was younger than I expected, but sharp, polite without being soft, the kind of man who didn't smile unless something deserved it. We met over video the next morning. I used Maggie's spare tablet and her neighbor's Wi-Fi. I sat stiff in that folding chair with the file open on my lap and my name tight in my throat. He listened, took notes, asked questions, then finally leaned back and said, "You may not be on the deed, Mrs. Hartwell, but if you've been making consistent financial contributions tied to the mortgage, especially with their knowledge, you have grounds." "Grounds?" I repeated. He nodded. "Equitable interest, possibly even a claim for unjust enrichment. Depends how far you want to take this." I sat there blinking. Me, a 68-year-old woman in a garage full of plastic pumpkins, talking about claims and filings and real legal standing. "I want them to know," I said quietly. "I'm not disposable." He looked me in the eye and said, "Then start gathering everything. Print, date, back up, we'll build it airtight." After the call, I went back to the folder. I printed more statements. I organized texts. I found one from her, dated October. "Thanks again for covering the mortgage this month. You're saving our butts. I'll make banana bread to celebrate." I printed that too. I took screenshots of every transfer, labeled every document. I even printed out a photo of the pink envelope, just in case. Then I started a timeline. April, first mortgage payment made from my account June. Moved into the guest room full-time September. Covered utilities and school clothes October. Text acknowledging my payment February. Discovered my name is not on the deed. March, overheard conversation about selling house now. Locked in garage. Preparing legal claim. The story looked different written out. Clearer. Colder. I wasn't imagining things. They had quietly removed me while quietly spending me. I looked around the garage. The clutter, the dust, the mattress half deflated again, and felt something rise in my chest. Not rage, resolve. Because this wasn't just about a room or a mortgage. This was about every time I swallowed my discomfort. Every time I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every time I let them call it help when I was holding up the whole house. They wanted to forget what I gave. But I was done making it easy for them. The lawyer said to keep it quiet, so I did. No screaming, no accusations, just boxes, files, and one woman who refused to be erased. It happened on a Wednesday. I'd spent the morning at the library, printing out old emails and getting everything in order. I even smiled once, standing at the copier, because for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt like a woman with a plan. But when I got back, something was off. The driveway was empty. No stroller, no sidewalk chalk, no signs of life, just that too perfect stillness, like a museum right before closing. I walked around the side gate, reached for the handle of the garage. Locked. I tried again, rattled it harder, locked from the inside. My heart thudded once, hard. I stood there with a tote bag full of folders, sweat beating at my temples, and realized what they'd done. They'd shut me out of the garage, of the space they'd already demoted me to. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked harder. Finally, she came to the side door, arms crossed, phone in hand. "Is there a reason you're banging on my house?" My house? That phrase again, said like a weapon. "The garage is locked," I said. She shrugged. "Yeah, safety reasons. We've got chemicals and tools in there. Don't want the kids getting into it. But I live there." "No," she said calmly, like she was correcting a child. "You're staying there, temporarily." The pause after staying told me everything. She didn't see me as part of anything, not anymore. "Where's my stuff?" I asked. She tilted her head, fake sweet. "We moved it to the shed. It's covered. You can get it if you need it." The shed. The one with no windows, no floor, just warped wood and spiders the size of thumbtacks. "Where do you expect me to sleep?" She blinked. "I don't know. Maybe Maggie's? You two are close, right?" I stared at her, throat tight, hands clutching that bag like it could anchor me. Behind her, I saw my son pass through the kitchen. He didn't even glance outside. "You could have told me," I said, voice low. "You could have said something." She smiled like it cost her nothing. "Well, we figured you'd be leaving soon anyway. Didn't want to delay things." She didn't slam the door. She just shut it. Soft. Final. I stood in the side yard with my tote bag and nowhere to go. The shed door creaked when I opened it. The smell hit first. Mildew, old paint, dead leaves. My suitcase was there, half open. My cardigan hung over a rake. My pillow was wedged between a box of tangled lights and a spider web that looked older than their marriage. I stepped back, dizzy, humiliated. This wasn't about space. It never was. It was about power. And they thought they'd taken mine for good. I texted Maggie. They locked me out. I'm coming. She replied instantly. Front door's open. Tea's hot. I turned one last time toward the house. The house I paid for. The house where my name was erased, one locked door at a time. And then I left. Not in anger. In certainty. Because now, I wasn't just building a case. I was preparing a reckoning. Maggie opened the door before I even knocked. She took one look at me. Suitcase, tote bag, the same cardigan I'd been wearing for 3 days, and pulled me in without a word. The smell of lemon balm and clean sheets hit me like a memory. Her home was always warm, always steady, a place where people didn't pretend love had limits. I'll make up the spare room, she said, already heading down the hall. You're not going back there, not unless you're holding a court order. I stood in her kitchen and finally exhaled. That night, I slept in a real bed. Clean sheets, 2 pillows, a small lamp on the nightstand with a switch that worked. There was a dent in the mattress where her niece had slept last summer, and I traced it with my fingers like it was a kindness. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I rested. The next morning, I met with Mr. Chen again, this time from Maggie's dining table, coffee in hand, her cat brushing against my ankle like I belonged. He listened patiently as I explained the relocation to the shed. His face didn't flinch, but his pen moved faster. This strengthens your position, he said. What they did could be seen as constructive eviction. Eviction? I repeated, surprised. You were living on the premises. You paid toward the mortgage. You contributed materially. They removed your access without warning or process. That has weight, especially in equity cases. I nodded slowly. The language was new, but the feeling underneath it wasn't. They hadn't just shoved me aside. They'd tried to erase the fact that I was ever there. He leaned in, voice calm but deliberate. We can pursue an equitable interest claim, possibly unjust enrichment, but we'll also prepare a formal demand. It's time to stop waiting for their conscience. I blinked. You really think they'll respond? He gave a small smile, the kind that didn't reach the eyes. Once it comes from an attorney's office, yes, they'll respond. Later that day, Maggie helped me draft the summary. Dates, payments, text logs, receipts. She even found an old voicemail from her birthday last year where I mentioned I couldn't come over because I was covering the mortgage again for those two. Every word mattered now. Every receipt was a brick, and brick by brick, we were building something that could no longer be ignored. That evening, we sat at her kitchen table, eating soup and passing the bread basket like nothing in the world was broken. Her neighbor popped in to borrow olive oil. Her cat jumped onto my lap. The world didn't stop because I'd been humiliated. And maybe that was the best part. Because for the first time in weeks, I felt steady. Not because they changed. Because I did. They had taken the room, the garage, even the shed. But they hadn't taken my name off the payments, or the texts, or the history. And now, for the first time, someone else was saying what I'd been screaming in silence. You have a right to be heard. And we were about to make sure they listened. The letter went out that Friday, not a text, not a voicemail, a real letter, stamped, sealed, and signed by Mr. Chen himself. Official letterhead, legal words, calm threats dressed in professionalism, a demand for reimbursement or transfer of partial equity. I didn't read the final version. I didn't have to. I knew what it said because I'd lived every word of it. Maggie and I sat at her window that afternoon, sipping tea, watching the mail carrier approach their house across the street. It felt strange, watching someone else carry my voice into that place, but also right. She took the envelope in her hand, just like I knew she would. My daughter-in-law, hair tied back, sunglasses on, phone in her other hand, always multitasking. She glanced at the return address, then froze, just for a second. Then her whole face changed. She peeled the envelope open right there on the porch. Her eyes scanned the first line, and that's when it hit her. Not just the words. The reality. This wasn't a warning. This was the beginning of a reckoning. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But I saw it. That flicker of panic. The kind that crawls up from the stomach and tightens your spine. She turned, opened the door with more force than usual, and slammed it behind her. I imagined her voice on the other side, sharp and fast. I imagined the look on my son's face when she told him. For a moment, I wondered if he'd defend me. If he'd say, "She did help. We do owe her something." Or maybe he'd stay quiet, like he had every time since. I didn't count on either, Mr. Chen called later that evening. "No formal response yet," he said, "but that's normal. Fear takes a little time to settle before people act. Fear, not guilt." That stuck with me. They weren't worried about how they treated me. They were worried I finally had the means to do something about it. And I did. Because now, this wasn't just about hurt feelings and broken trust. It was about money, paper trails, mortgage records, verifiable contributions. They'd turned my love into a liability. So now, I was turning their greed into a court-recognized debt. That night, Maggie and I played a round of cards on the back patio. The breeze was warm. A moth fluttered near the light. And just before I turned in, I looked out across the street one last time. The living room lights were on. Shadows moved behind the curtains. My son's silhouette passed the window, quickly, nervously. Good. Let them pace. Let them worry. Because they thought I'd leave quietly, sleep in the shed, disappear into shame. But I didn't. I got legal. I got clear. And now, they'd have to walk through me if they wanted to sell that house. That night, I sat across from Maggie at her kitchen table. The same spot where she'd first told me, "You've got leverage." Now I knew it was more than that. I had proof. I had a voice. But what I didn't have, what I was only starting to face, was peace. I stirred my tea and stared down at the steam, watching it vanish. "I raised that boy," I said quietly. Alone, every scraped knee, every lunchbox. I worked 2 jobs so he wouldn't feel what I felt growing up. Forgotten. Maggie didn't interrupt. She knew not to. I used to dream about what kind of man he'd be. Thought maybe he'd be someone who opened doors for others, not locked them behind him. I laughed once, dry and low. Instead, he married someone who saw me as clutter. And he let her. It was the first time I'd said it out loud. He let her. That was the part one kept swallowing. The part that burned the longest. I could have handled her attitude, her eye rolls, even her arrogance. But my son? Standing there, letting it happen? No, that's what hardened in me. Not rage, not revenge. Clarity. "You know," I whispered, "I gave up my retirement for them. Canceled trips, drove across town in snow to babysit, let her call the shots. I stayed quiet when she pushed. I made excuses when she dismissed me. I even paid the mortgage while she planned to sell the house under me." Maggie reached over and placed her hand over mine. Steady, warm. "They only love the version of me that gives," I said. The moment I said no, I became disposable. My eyes were dry. My voice didn't shake. I was done weeping for people who only wanted the parts of me that served them. "I'm not being kind anymore," I said almost to myself. Not at my own expense. We sat in silence for a while. Then Maggie said, "So what's next?" I looked up, met her eyes. "We file the lis pendens." Her mouth twitched. "You remembered the term." I nodded. "If they want to sell the house, they'll have to deal with me first. Public notice. No hiding. No sneaking buyers through while I rot in the garage." She grinned. "That's my girl." The next morning, I called Mr. Chen, gave him the go-ahead. He said the words like a surgeon prepping for surgery. Precise, measured. "We'll file the lis pendens this afternoon." Translation: the house was now legally frozen. They couldn't sell, refinance, or transfer anything without alerting future buyers that I had a claim. The paper trail had teeth now, and I had space to breathe. Later, I went to the bank, quietly opened my own account. Just me, no shared access, no emergency contacts. I rerouted my pension, updated my will, and changed every password I'd ever handed them out of convenience. They thought they stripped me down to nothing, but all they did was clear the room for me to build something real again, something mine. No garage, no locked doors, just a woman with her name on the fax, and fire in her spine. And this time, I wasn't going back. I wasn't expecting the knock. It was Sunday morning. I was folding laundry at Maggie's when I heard it. 3 soft taps, hesitant, not angry, not official, just small. I opened the door, and there she was. Lily, my granddaughter, 11 years old, cheeks flushed, arms wrapped around her little backpack like armor. "Grandma," she whispered, "Mom said you were in a home." But that didn't sound right, so I looked you up. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh or collapse. My knees nearly gave out. I stepped back to let her in, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. She smelled like apple shampoo, in truth. And when she hugged me, I realized just how long it had been since someone touched me without needing something. "I've been asking where you were for weeks," she said, curled up on the couch beside me, eyes glassy. Dad wouldn't talk. Mom just said it was better this way, but I knew they were hiding something. I didn't trash her mother. I didn't need to. I just said, sometimes grown-ups make decisions they think are easier, even when they're wrong. Lily nodded, quiet, watching me the way kids do when they know more than they're supposed to. "You were living in the garage?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. "For a while, yes. Did you do something bad?" That one hit hard. "No, sweetheart," I said, smoothing her hair behind her ear. "I just stopped saying yes to everything." She looked at me for a long time, then whispered, "I missed you." My throat tightened. I hadn't cried in days. Not since the lawyer's office. But that cracked me. "I missed you too." She pulled a crumpled note from her backpack. "I wrote this before I knew where you were. I just wanted you to know I didn't forget you." It was a folded-up sheet of notebook paper, a drawing of the two of us, her on my lap, reading, the cat in the corner. She'd written at the bottom, "I love you. I hope you're okay." That's when I knew. I wasn't just fighting for equity or dignity. I was fighting for her, for the space in her life they tried to cut me out of. Maggie made her hot cocoa while I sat at the table and called Mr. Chen. "My granddaughter found me," I told him. "I want visitation added to any settlement language, permanently." He didn't hesitate. "We can add that, and we'll make sure it's enforceable." Later that night, Lily lay on Maggie's couch under a quilt. The TV flickered soft cartoons, and her breaths evened out slow and steady. I watched her sleep and thought, they lied to her. They used her, just like they used me. But she still came looking. She still found me. And when this fight is over, when the house is settled, the money sorted, the papers signed, I'll still have her. Because love, real love, doesn't vanish just because someone locked the garage. It finds a way, it knocks at the door. And this time, I opened it. We scheduled the meeting for Thursday morning. Neutral ground, lawyer's office, conference room, bright with windows and too many chairs. I wore navy, Maggie insisted, said it made me look composed. Unshakable. My son and daughter-in-law arrived late. She walked in first, heels sharp on tile, sunglasses still on indoors. My son followed behind, eyes on the floor, hands in his pockets like a boy being dragged to detention. Mr. Chen stood when they entered, calm, professional. "Thank you for coming. We'll keep this civil and direct." They sat across from me. She didn't say hello, didn't even nod, just crossed her arms and waited, mouth already curled into that smirk she wore when she thought she was smarter than everyone in the room. Mr. Chen slid the packet across the table. "As outlined here, Mrs. Hartwell has made continuous financial contributions toward the mortgage and household expenses. with written acknowledgement and transactional records. We're seeking either reimbursement or a formal transfer of partial equity. Her laugh was sharp, almost theatrical. You can't be serious. I am, I said, voice steady. She looked at me then. Finally. You were a guest. You offered to help. No one forced you. That's not ownership. It's charity. I leaned forward slowly, laid one palm over the stack of receipts, the printed texts, the screenshots of every thank you, and we couldn't do this without you. No, I said. I was the foundation you built on. Her eyes narrowed. This is just revenge. You're bitter because you didn't get your way. You locked me in a garage, I said. Then locked me out entirely. Her mouth opened, but Mr. Chen cut in. The documents show a consistent pattern of financial reliance. This isn't emotional. It's legal. And very clear. My son finally spoke. Mom, he started, soft. I didn't know it went that far. I turned to him. My face didn't break. You didn't ask. His eyes dropped again. She was livid now, shifting in her seat. You're ruining everything. We had a buyer lined up. You filed that, whatever it's called, just to sabotage us. A lis pendens, Mr. Chen said smoothly. It's a notice, not sabotage, a declaration that the property is tied up in a claim. Anyone buying it has the right to know who helped pay for it. She stood. Unbelievable. My son stayed seated. I loved you like a daughter, I said quietly. I stayed quiet for too long, because I thought that meant something. You overstepped, she snapped. This was never your house. I stood too, met her at eye level. No, I said. It was never mine on paper, but it wouldn't exist without me. The silence that followed felt different than the ones before. Not heavy. Final. Mr. Chen slid a pen across the table. We can discuss settlement today, or we proceed formally. Your choice. She stared at the pen like it might bite her. But I could see it, the panic under her skin, because she finally understood. I wasn't just some old woman with feelings. I was a woman with proof. And she wasn't walking away clean. We didn't say a word in the elevator. The three of us rode down in stiff silence. Me, my son, and her. I could feel the rage rolling off her like heat. He stood between us like a fence too worn to hold anything back. Outside, in the parking lot, the real explosion came. She whirled on me before we even made it to the cars. Do you feel better now? She hissed. Dragging us through lawyers like we're criminals? Over what? Some bills you offered to pay? I didn't flinch. It wasn't a gift. You knew that. Oh, please, she snapped. You were grateful to be part of something. That's what you said. Don't twist it now because you got bored in the garage. That word. Grateful. Like I should have been thanking her for allowing me to sleep next to power tools and rusted bikes. My son stood off to the side. Didn't say a word. So I said it to him. Do you even know how many payments I made, David? How many times I covered when the card declined? How many groceries I bought, meals I cooked, nights I babysat so you two could sleep? He looked like he wanted to disappear. I was tired, Mom, he said. We were drowning. You said you wanted to help. And I did, I said. But help isn't the same as being taken. I didn't sign up to be discarded. She cut in again, voice sharper now. You're ruining everything. The sale, our plans, Lily's school zone. You don't care about any of that. Just your ego. I turned fully to face her. No, I said. I care that I was lied to, that you let me build your life while you planned to walk off with the house and leave me in the shed. She opened her mouth again, but I held up a hand. You don't get to spin this, I said. You pushed me out, you locked me out, and now that I've pushed back, I'm the villain? Her lips curled. You were always dramatic, and you were always calculating. That stopped her. I stepped closer, not aggressive, just direct. You think this is revenge? It's not. It's reality. You built your life on my back and called it generosity. She scoffed. You're making it personal. It was personal, I said. You made it that way the second you called me in the way while planning to sell the house I paid for. She opened her mouth again, some insult loaded behind her teeth, but I didn't let her fire it. "You ruined me first," I said softly. "You just didn't think I'd say it out loud." My son finally looked at me. For real. His face was pale, eyes stunned. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't know it was this bad." I looked at him. Really looked. "You didn't want to know," I said, "and now you can't ignore it." They turned toward their car. She didn't say goodbye. He glanced back once. I didn't wave. I just stood there. The wind blew soft through the parking lot. My coat flapped once. And I let it. Because I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't pleading. I wasn't asking. They knew now. And the silence they left behind wasn't empty. It was mine. The settlement offer came 2 days later. It was quiet. No apology. No meeting. Just an envelope slid into my lawyer's inbox and forwarded to me with a simple subject line: Proposed Resolution. I read every line twice. Then a third time. They were offering me $65,000. A buyout, a clean break, and full, legally documented visitation rights with Lily. Mr. Chen called before I even asked. "They're nervous," he said. "The list pendants scared off a buyer last week. They want you off the title trail, but they know you've got a case. This offer means they'd rather pay than fight in court." I sat at Maggie's kitchen table, the offer open beside my tea. $65,000. It was less than what I'd spent, but it was enough. Enough to start over. Enough to live without swallowing my dignity to keep the peace. "They really thought I'd just go away," I murmured. "They always do," Maggie said from the stove, "until you stand up." We met with Mr. Chen that afternoon. Reviewed every clause. I told him I wouldn't sign unless it was airtight. No loopholes, no reworded lines that say one thing and mean another. He nodded. "We'll include language that blocks them from reversing visitation. If they violate it, they'll owe court costs. And I want the funds transferred through a secure channel. No personal checks, no delays. You'll have a wire transfer confirmation before you hand over a signature." I exhaled. It wasn't about revenge. It was about terms. About ending things on my terms. The papers were signed at 10:47 a.m. the next day. I wore the same navy blouse. Maggie waited outside with 2 lattes and a quiet smile. Mr. Chen shook my hand like I was a businesswoman, not a mother they tried to erase. "You did something most people don't," he said. "You pushed back with proof, not anger. That's why this worked." I nodded, but I didn't smile. Because underneath the relief, there was grief, too. I hadn't just won a settlement. I'd buried the last of my illusions. My son hadn't called. Not once. "No, I'm sorry. No, you were right." Just silence, as if he could pretend this was a technical disagreement, not the unraveling of a relationship built on me carrying him longer than I ever should have. Maggie drove me to the bank that afternoon. I watched the numbers shift on the screen. Funds wired, balance updated, and felt tired. Not weak, just finally allowed to exhale. I used part of the settlement for a condo. Small, clean, mine. No garage, no gatekeeping. No pink envelopes taped to suitcases. I bought a real bed. A new kettle. A throw blanket with sunflowers stitched into the corners. Maggie helped me hang curtains, the color of soft sky. Lily picked out a plant for the windowsill, something leafy and overconfident, just like her. And when she visited that first weekend, she ran through every room. "It's so calm here," she said. I smiled. "That's the point." She curled up beside me on the couch, blanket pulled over our laps, and whispered, "I'm glad you didn't disappear." I looked at her, tucked safe into my side. "I almost did," I said, "but not anymore, because I finally knew the price of being quiet. And I was done paying it." Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos.